Hi everyone, welcome back to The Learning Gardener. If you've watched our last few videos, you know that we've been prepping the house and the garden for my best friend's high tea garden party. It was just going to be a small group of us, but I wanted to make it nice and special because it was her big birthday. And I wanted to just show you guys how everything turned out with the party. So I started off by wanting to try and make a whole bunch of foods ahead of time, but the difficulty is with things like a high tea, sandwiches are going to go stale, cakes taste a lot better if they're made on the day, and I knew it was going to be a late afternoon tea verging on dinner party with 3 hungry boys who have just won their cricket finals. So I wanted to make some dinner food. So even though lamb koftas look a little bit questionable, I made a batch of them because I could make them ahead and pop them in the freezer and easily just warm them up in the pan on the day. And they're a nice, nutritious, high protein meal that will fill the bellies of 3 teenage boys who were, as always, quite ravenous. So they're a really tasty meal, and my idea with them was that they could either be served as a finger food and someone could dunk them in the flavored coconut yogurt, or you could serve them in a wrap with vegetables, which was what we ended up doing. The other thing I started to prepare ahead as much as I could was things like the eggs. And my best friend is actually the one that taught me this hack for boiling eggs, so no need for a timer. You just toss them all in cold water, and once the eggs come up to a rolling boil, pop the lid on and turn the heat off. And you leave it in there for 10 minutes, and every single time they turn out absolutely perfectly. I would say that I'm not a stickler for the rule of leaving it in for only 10 minutes. I tend to wander off and come back a couple of hours later, but I have found that I have not one ever time had dodgy boiled eggs. They've always been perfect. And I know that the boys love my egg salad sandwich, which is literally just eggs, a little bit of mayonnaise and a little bit of salt, and they go nuts for them. So I was planning on making quite a few of those to fill the boys up. The other thing I wanted to do was set up the dining table inside. Now, I wasn't planning on hosting inside, but I thought just in case we have a weird cold day because we are going into autumn, or in case it's super hot, we wanted to be set up and ready to go inside just in case. We have been leaning more towards super hot weather, but I was hopeful because the forecast was for an overcast 24 degrees, which would be perfect. I picked up these high tea stands from Kmart. They were quite cheap and they were actually beautiful, and they looked so good with the kind of eucalyptus green vibes that we had going on with the tablecloths. And I knew I had a high tea stand somewhere, but of course I didn't find it until after the party. So I'm glad to have these 2 round ones and the square serving platter one in my collection now, as I actually think I will use these quite a lot because of how much they match the rest of my decor. And I was really happy with like the quality of these. I think they were like $10, so I'm really happy with how they turned out. Good old Kmart came through with the goods, and the table setup looked great. I also wanted to have this area set up in case I ran out of time setting everything up, which inevitably happened, and so I could have everything set up inside and then we could just transfer it outside. The other reason I suspected that that would happen is because I'm looking after my mum's dog at the moment. He attacked one of my dogs, and I'm just in the process of reintroducing them, so I suspected that it would be difficult to have the food where I wasn't and not have it being monitored if the dogs were separated and one was outside and one was inside. And basically I just suspected it was going to be too much to do food patrol and monitor 3 dogs and make sure everyone was behaving correctly and make sure the food didn't melt and put everything together. So I wanted to have it set up inside, so worst case scenario, if everyone arrived and everything wasn't out on the outdoor tables, it still looked nice. One of you guys made the awesome suggestion to make some flower arrangements, and in this case I'm using some dried flowers that I had saved. And you recommended that I put them on this indoor flower stand that I actually have sitting on my deck waiting for me to repot some indoor plants in it, because currently there's no alive plants really on that stand, and I thought that would be a really beautiful way to make use of something that I hadn't brought inside and to make everything a little bit more beautiful. So one of the things I could do ahead of time while monitoring the dogs was make a dried flower arrangement. It was a little bit tricky to do much ahead of time because I was having to monitor and keep the dogs separate so they could get used to each other again. But this was one task that was easily done ahead of time, and it enabled me to start popping things on the table that were ready to go, so that the next day when the party was, I could just pop them out easily. I wasn't running around looking for things like where are the straws, where are the cups, where are the epoxy flower coaster resin art that I made recently that were perfectly on theme for a garden party. I just got as much as I could ready ahead of time. And the other thing I wanted to make sure was that we had some nice fresh produce, and I knew that we had a range of cherry tomatoes that had become ripe and I'd been ignoring because I'd been busy doing other things. And so I went and picked all of those, and I thought they would be beautiful to add to a charcuterie board, or to just get the kids to pluck and eat while they were waiting for any food to be served, because my best friend's kids have been living off these Valentine cherry tomatoes in their lunchboxes for a number of weeks. They've been loving them, and it's getting towards that part of the season where it's really the last harvest, so it was time to make the most of what was there. And I was quite surprised by the amount of tomatoes that were available and pretty well ripe in the garden. So I got these all washed and prepped, and I made a salad to go with the kofta wraps the night before, and got the cherry tomatoes ready for the charcuterie board. The other thing I did was make some mini banana bread loaves. The reason I made mini banana bread loaves is I know that the boys love my banana bread, and I know that my best friend's husband is a particular fan of my banana bread. And I knew that there would be leftovers, and this would let them take them to school and to work the next day as snacks. And I do tend to wildly over cater when I'm having a party, so I've been trying to work on making a more reasonable amount of food, or at least making food that can either be frozen or that can be used in lunch boxes the next day to at least make use of it. So the banana breads can obviously be frozen, and I know that my friend's husband will smash these out pretty quickly because he just loves this banana bread. It's just a basic Thermomix recipe, but for some reason he just really lives for this banana bread. So anytime I need to say thank you to Jono for anything, it's banana bread getting sent down the road to her house. When I was deciding what I was going to serve at the party, I was thinking about the fact that there were going to be 4 kids there, and I didn't want to just serve like a high tea is usually either just sandwiches and cakes and brownies and fruit tarts and things like that. I wanted to make sure that yes, there was a little bit of that, because obviously high tea, birthday party, you don't want to be a party pooper. But I also wanted to make sure that there was some good high protein meals there that would provide quality nourishment for the kids, and so that they weren't just going to end up hopped up on sugar. Obviously, that is a bit of a funny thing to bring up when I'm placing drinks in the cooler, but we needed a little bit of something because we weren't serving champagne because my friend and her husband had to be at work the next day, and also the punch jar that I have for special occasions, which would have been perfect for this high tea, actually had a giant crack in it and leaked in the kitchen. So that was, pretty perfect. Once I realized that we were actually going to be having 3 teenage boys, I thought, I better make some more lamb koftas. I don't know that I made enough to feed hungry boys because they had literally spent all morning winning the cricket grand finals. So I made another batch of koftas because they're really quick and easy to make, but also because when I was at the shops getting last minute things like strawberries, the butcher had a deal where if you spent $10 you got a free bag of bones. And I thought, well, you know what, I'll take a couple bags of bones and I'll make myself some broth because I've been on some pretty heavy duty antibiotics of late, and hopefully some broth will help my gut recover, because I'd done a lot of work on my gut health trying to work with my autoimmune diseases, and now that's kind of gone out the window with all the antibiotics I'm on, but you got to do what you got to do. So I cooked up the koftas and then popped them in the fridge, and at least then I felt sure that we were going to have enough to get even the hungriest kids through dinner time. And it was time to move on to the cake. My best friend requested a strawberry shortcake, and so I will put the recipe that I used in the description below. The icing, we ended up with a huge amount of leftover icing, even though I used quite a lot. And it's a cream cheese frosting, and it was really, really, really nice. And it was a lovely cake. I kind of thought strawberry shortcake would actually be a little bit more, I want to say like a gluten-free scone, because that is kind of like, gluten-free is where my frame of reference is, because usually that's what I'm eating, but I didn't want to torture everyone else with a gluten-free cake. And I thought it'd be a more dense cake, but these were quite light and fluffy, and it was really, really tasty and just came out of the oven just absolutely beautifully. So the cream cheese frosting I have put in the freezer for another day so we can have another cake. And it was time to move on to some snacks. So I make these nut muesli bars, I always call them, even though there's no muesli at all in them. And I put cranberries and dates and things like that. And I use Sally's Baking Addiction vanilla, I think they're called cashew nut bars, as a rough guideline for my proportions. And then I just pretty much freestyle and put whatever I want in them. And I wanted to make these so that I could make some little bite-sized chunks of a nutty almond bar to put again as a nice healthy protein snack to try and get the kids into. But I did burn them getting them out of the oven because I forgot about them. But then I whipped up the coconut yogurt with a bit of cumin, salt and pepper, lemon juice and garlic, and this stuff tastes so beautiful with the koftas, and it's just a great recipe from Nagi, an Australian chef, so I'll put that in the link below. One of the last things I did was start to construct the cake. It wasn't a hot day, but I didn't want the whole thing to melt, but I did underestimate the time required to construct the sandwiches, because I was like, how long does it take to construct an egg sandwich? Not long. And I was definitely glad I turned on the air conditioning to keep things under control. And so this is literally just diced fresh strawberries and jam. And I had strawberries and blueberries for the scones that I had made, and I'll put that recipe again in the link below, even though scones are pretty basic, but I'll still link it below. And the crazy thing was, when I was at the shops buying the berries, I had the hardest time choosing which berries to buy. It has been over 2 years since I have bought berries in the store, because I grow them in my backyard. They're just not in season at the moment, and these recipes really needed fresh berries. And the crazy thing was, when I was looking at the berries, because I now know what really fresh berries are like, I just was looking at them going, these aren't fresh, and I struggled to actually find some that I liked. But the cake turned out, looked pretty great. It did slowly become a slight leaning Tower of Pisa, but it didn't matter, it tasted amazing. And so did the scones, and I was really happy actually with these stands that, as I said, I got from Kmart. They looked amazing with the setup, and I was really happy with how things were coming together.
I can only give what I have. When I get home to you, I just want to hold you. I love hearing you calling my name. Here I am.
I knew I wouldn't have time to attempt to bake any tarts or anything like that for the first time, so I just hit Baker's Delight and grabbed 2 packs of Portuguese tarts, and they went down a treat. And then it was time to try and quickly make some flour posies. I was running out of time and running late because I had to run to the shops again because the flour that I had to make the scones actually had weevils in it, so I had to abandon ship and run to the store. And that meant I was running about half an hour to an hour late and trying not to get bitten by a bee for the second time in a week. But the flowers actually came together beautifully, and I was trying to work as quickly as I could. And one of my favorite combinations was these beautiful lime zinnias with the blue of the borage flower.
I wanna wander out of the valley where the river takes us far away from home. Time to ponder in the fields around me where there's nothing but the breeze and the great unknown. Leave your worries and your suitcase. All you don't need, nothing but you. So don't throw your hopes down on wishing well. It's your heart's desire carry you. Come and sail with me to the open ocean where you don't have to dream because there's you.
As seems to eternally happen when I'm hosting, I didn't have time to get changed or do any makeup or anything, but everything looked amazing and I was really happy with the way the flowers turned out, with the way the table looked. I was really happy with how everything tasted. We had our egg sandwiches, we had sandwiches with hummus, spinach, roast sweet potato and roasted capsicum, and cucumber sandwiches with a little bit of dill and cream cheese. And everyone tucked in and got as much as they could on their plate. We also had some lemon bliss balls, which are a cashew-based protein ball. And then we had the lamb kofta wraps for dinner, and it all just turned out really well. I was really happy with the flowers, really happy with the cake, really happy with the weather. Everything was just perfect. And I was really glad because my best friend is an absolute champion and she deserves nothing but everything to turn out absolutely perfectly in her life. And so I was really glad that we had the perfect weather and that none of us were uncomfortable in any way, and that the cake didn't melt and fall off the table, and that the food tasted nice, and that I only burnt the peanut brittle. So I hope you guys have enjoyed seeing how the party turned out, and we'll be back to our regularly scheduled program this week. Thanks for watching.